Cinema has seen plenty of visions of the end of the world, but there's always one more, or like 20, lurking in cinema history. This set of films delivers atmospheric meditations on humanity with great craft and emotion. It's not an action-filled apocalypse, it's a post-mortem on what got us to the point. From 1986 to 2006, Russian director Konstantin Lopushansky made four thematically connected films, which are sometimes referred to as the Apocalypse Quadrilogy. Although realistically, the films aren't really well enough to, deserve their own moniker, but there are no rules, doesn't matter. These films vary in apocalyptic time frame, with half being nearly post-catastrophe and half approaching a catastrophe. But all four films have a similarly recognizable style and collection of interests. All four films use color as a foundation for their atmosphere. They all use somewhere on the scale of like a brown, orange, red to soak the screen, create a unique environment before things even get to the point of production design. And this approach wouldn't work for every film, but the color is a consistent, eerie, expressive choice for the film that makes each entry better. It's oppressive, and these films all take place under oppressive circumstances. For example, this is the first shot of the dying swans, and I cannot possibly see the unflinching color choice here and not feel a sense of doom going into the film. Each film has fascinating production design. They've all got some specific locations and environments that seem both wild to create for a film that's probably cheaper, and also just wild to exist out in the open. For example, Russian Symphony. They surely don't have a water tank for this, right? Did they just flood an entire sunken, abandoned street? And Visitor to a Museum. Did they just create garbage dumps? Did they film in them? And even past the big flashy sets, there's such great detail and set decoration to populate the worlds. Every entry has standout moments in the score, and every entry has standout moments in the soundscape. This is another part of populating these apocalyptic worlds and their environments, because that's what grounds these movies. It's the atmosphere, it's the specific visions of the world that fit with the somber ideas. So from here, I'll do a broad overview of each entry. First is Dead Man's Letters. This was released in 1986 and was Lopushansky's debut feature. It follows a group of survivors in a history museum following a nuclear holocaust. And of course, this is one that takes place post rather than pre-apocalypse. One plus that's not intrinsic to the film is that there's a great 4K version of this, which is nicer than anything I could find for the subsequent ones. Monotony kills some movies, but I think it's the lifeblood of this one. These survivors are trapped in the prison of humanity's creation. The outside world is punishing, and all it seems to have for them is scraps of past hope and life. All they have is meager meals and debating what got them there. The color here is predominantly a solid brown, which matches the decrepit living area. The color does not feel like doom the way it does in subsequent films, but rather like a dead end or an overbearing lack of hope. The opening shot perfectly sets the tone for this, with the light bulb barely illuminating a truly depressing sight, with the wife seemingly signifying the last dying breath of humanity. It's a well-shot film, including a great motif of these hand-cranked lights, giving a wavery light source that feels like it's on the verge of flickering out. I won't show all the awesome locations, but here's one example. The film philosophizes a bit about mankind's nature and how mankind brutalized science to create the problems that led them there. And there's plenty to dissect there, but to me the most interesting effect is that musing in the face of what existence actually is. The talking and the ranting is all they can do. I mean, they've got nothing else left, and the movie emphasizes that throughout its runtime. Next is A Visitor to a Museum. In 1989, Lopushansky released another post-apocalyptic film, and in this one, a man vacations amongst the ruins of society to visit a museum which is buried under the sea. This is maybe the weakest atmosphere of the four, although that is praising with faint condemnation, I guess. You still have awesome locations, awesome shots, good use of color, and even good use of nature itself as a divine force. But to me, this is a film that stands out primarily for its ideas. I didn't mention it with Letters, but both this film, The Museum, and Letters have interesting musings on intellectualism. I don't believe that he is anti-intellectualist by any means, but I think he has a downbeat view of the nature of humanity and laments the way we have used our wonderful abilities to gain and harness knowledge. Science, via the nuke, in the case of Letters, served as the downfall of humanity. That's not because of science, it's because of human desires and the way science is used. Here, religion is the pursuit of the degenerates, who are essentially physically and or mentally handicapped people as a result of some disasters which have occurred. I don't believe this commentary is derisive of religion. I think he's understanding the pull of religion in an age of uncertainty. And in the meantime, the more normative people aren't doing a thing about the current condition, the people who have the power and ability to do something. There's a quote from one of the characters saying essentially that they know about future disasters coming in 50 years, but they don't care because they won't be alive. The people with the capacity to change things, or at least work for a less disastrous future, simply don't care. They'd rather amuse themselves in the meantime. The degenerates can't drag themselves out, but desperately seek a way out. Normally, you might expect people to be burdened by knowledge in this sort of film, as you might see in something like The Day After Tomorrow, for example, where like the scientist is burdened by the knowledge he has of the oncoming climate disaster. Here, the script is reversed. I'm also curious about this film's place in the climate change awareness timeline, because there are aspects of this story which feel alarmingly familiar. I mean, of course, the idea of understanding devastating disaster coming soon, 50 years, who knows, and just refusing to do anything about it must feel very familiar, or at least refusing to do anything to bolster the future for everyone. So I wonder how much of the film at the time was aware of climate science and just how much of it is kind of reading into that after the fact. Because this could also be applied any number of ways in which people who have the ability to affect change are unwilling to do anything about it. Third is Russian Symphony. This film, released in 1994, details a man attempting to save a school of children which is sinking in a flood. This is our first pre-apocalyptic film, though it's, I suppose, occurring as the apocalypse is happening. If I had to guess, this might have the most Russian-specific context, which is probably shocking given the title. But regardless, I still found plenty that's more generally appreciable. I think this has the strongest atmosphere and also the strongest use of color. It's clear from the opening scene, and it's a great opening scene, I think, and it continues throughout, especially in a sequence like this ethereal holy scene, which sees our protagonist climb a hill towards the promise of mankind's religious revelation. Also, the scene has a juxtaposing scene which goes along with it, which is brilliant. And there's a strange quality to the color at points, like a sort of red-orange gradient. It has a harshness in some scenes that kind of blankets the sky and makes scenes in which it's in use feel like they kind of take place out of time and space. Again, great production design, great world, compelling sense of gloom and doom. The most unique feature of this one, I think, is the fact that it's actually kind of funny. The film is a series of hijinks where the main character is trying to get help for this school, and he just keeps getting sidetracked and ignored. It's not a constant riot, but there is some dark absurdity and dark humor to just how things transpire and just how he never gets anything done. He also delivers a speech at one point with some lines that cracked me up. It's a great speech. I think this is just barely my favorite of the four, between the atmospheric strengths and also some of the best score work and some compelling ideas that involve religion a little bit more, but religion is always there in some degree. I think this is my favorite total package, just by a little bit. Last is The Dying Swans. It's his 2006 film, which focuses on a UN investigation into some mutated humans and school children they've adopted as students. This to me is the clear weakest of the four, although I still think it's well worth the time. I still think it's a positive experience. It has the same positive qualities as the previous entries, but I just think they're a little sparser. One ding is that the cinematographer from the previous film sadly passed away before this one, and the difference isn't massive, but I did pick up on it before I knew that he had passed away before filming. So the practical implication, I think, is that this film gets off to a slightly slower start because of the kinds of scenes that are early on that I think it's not particularly good at filming, doesn't have very interesting ideas for. It does wind up building compelling momentum, but it just takes longer than it probably should have. However, you'll still recognize the oppressive, doomy color from previous installments. You'll recognize the production design, set dressing, the effort going into making these environments look like they're on their last legs. The design work is so consistently quality over the four films, over different production designers, and I assume Constantine must have had a heavy hand in how that goes. So kudos to him in addition to the people doing the actual work to implement his ideas. This film is pretty transparently about youth, the future, as it specifically calls them, and how adults interface with their new youthful perspective. I didn't find this one to have the same sort of depth that I got from some other entries, but the trademark depressive outlook is present and it's still compelling. The kids have their issues with the world. Their solution probably won't work either, but at least they could make things better, and that's an improvement over giving up, right? So these films will probably be tough to marathon. They won't leave you giddy or excited, probably, to see another film that weighs on you about the state of the world, but they are extremely impressive to me and worth a watch for the meditative look at the apocalypse.